so great, I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, ain't no matter if you're against me. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.
So great, I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old.
Welcome to this another episode of This Just In. Tonight we have a show packed with NFL and NBA action for you. I'm Marsha Boyce, and of course with me the usual gang, Justin Marvel and Neil Hoyt. Guys, good night. I hope I'm well. Let's jump straight into our first question tonight. Now, looking at a scoreline last night, I was wondering which sport was I watching? As the Saints defeated the Buccaneers 38-3. I was thinking, this is a cricket score. 38-3. What's going on here? A lot of attention has been placed on none other than Tom Brady. Justin, I'm going to start with you. How much blame or how much emphasis should we put on Tom Brady for that defeat and for the other defeat, because they've lost twice to the Saints?
I'm going to start with this one, Marsha and Neil, and a bit surprising maybe. I don't put much blame on Tom Brady for this one. And it sounds surprising considering I think he had three interceptions for certain. But I place all of that again on the coaching staff. No, let me get right into it. This team has built itself as a power running team. You have Ronald Jones, who everyone realizes is very hard to bring down on first contact. They went out in free agency and got Leonard Fournette and started to fashion themselves as a power running football team. And then their first game of the season, which is a matchup against those aforementioned Saints, they realized that the offense that Bruce Arians and offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich, that offense was not suited to Tom Brady, which is that they like a lot of long throws down the field, a lot of plays that take a time to develop, like long developing routes. And we know from watching Tom Brady in New England, that's not what he does. He likes a lot of shallow crossers, a lot of rub routes, a lot of screen passes, a lot of short hook routes, short to intermediate throws. That didn't work in game one. They got routed. They came back and adjusted, put more of Tom Brady's game plan from New England, and then we saw what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are supposed to look like. And then Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich got back to feeling themselves again. Those long developing routes, those deep balls that Tom Brady does not like, and and they went away from the run. What do you know? For a power running football team, they ran the ball 5 times, and I don't even want to say 5. Because one of those was a run by backup quarterback Blaine Gabbert. So really and truly, that's 4 runs. And you're a power football team. So all you did was put Tom Brady in harm's way. And they did it from the very first play from scrimmage. You put rookie tackle Tristan Wirfs against Cam Jordan. And Cam Jordan on the very first play almost got home against Tom Brady to, almost cause an interception on that very first play. And from then, the second series, you're backed up in your own end zone, and you continually throwing the ball. And again, not shallow crossers, not rub routes, not short hook routes, nothing intermediate. All these long developing routes that take time. And the Saints just got after them. And I'm just talking about on offense now. Mm-hmm. On defense, Todd Bowles was probably just as bad, if not worse than Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich. This is a team that has prided itself on, a lot of man coverage on the back end and getting after quarterbacks. So what did they do now against the quarterback that loves zone more than any other quarterback in the NFL history, they play a zone on the back end. And why that is so concerning for me is that not only Drew Brees love to pick apart zones. When you look at their personnel, their leading pass catcher with Michael Thomas out for all this while, Marsha and Neil, has been running back Alvin Kamara. And as you know, running backs don't go very far down the field. Those are short, intermediate routes. So when you play a zone, Alvin Kamara can just run short and sit down in the zone, find the soft spot, and get catches. Michael Thomas, well, one of the best receivers in the league, has made a living off of short to intermediate routes. So instead of playing man and sitting down on his short routes, you gave him zones, you gave him soft spots in the middle of the field, and that is what Michael Thomas feeds off of. Emmanuel Sanders, the same thing. The only deep threat that you really have to worry about is Deontay Harris and Traquan Smith. I don't understand a team. Everyone says that Drew Brees does not have, this huge arm strength. So then you feed into that and give them, soft spots in the zone all night. They rake up 38 points, and then you seem surprised. So as much, Marsha, as Tom Brady did indeed have 3 interceptions on the night, I give most of the blame, if not to the coaching staff.
Well, Neil, you've heard Justin. Clearly he had a lot backed up that he wanted to say on this particular matchup. Your thoughts? Should Tom Brady really be holding, some of the blame this time around?
No, ordinarily, Justin is the politically correct guy. He's the guy that, no, sorry, I am the politically correct guy. I'm sorry. I'm the politically correct guy. And Justin is usually, and Justin is usually one that's very, he's very what?
Justin,
he is not PC.
We'll leave it at that.
In this culture. Right. Now, when it comes to this loss yesterday, against the Saints, I blame Tom Brady. I blame Todd Bowles. I blame Leftwich. I blame Bruce Arians. I blame Captain Fear. I blame Bill Belichick. I blame
everybody.
Everybody.
Tell us how you really feel, Neil.
Anybody, listen to me, right? When you have a team, right, that solely depends on their running back for not only rushing, but for their passes, right? In Alvin Kamara, you rely on him solely. Yes, you have targets like Emmanuel Sanders. You have the guy Smith, Traquan Smith. You even have a decent tight end. You have targets, but the New Orleans Saints solely focuses on passing or rushing the ball with Alvin Kamara. How on God's green earth do you let that offense run up and down the field on you? Especially when for the last 4 weeks we've been touting you as a great defense in the National Football League. Then on top of that too, you Tom Brady. Yes, we could have blamed you in the first loss that you had against the Saints, right? But you see this loss here? You see this loss? Not only do I blame you, Tom Brady, you look bad, you look old, you look like you should retire. You ain't see the end zone. You was what? You was 1-9 in third down conversions. You inside the ball, you throw away the ball 3 times, right? What was doing like defensively? New Orleans had the ball for 40 minutes possession in the entire game. 40 out of the 60 minutes. This was not football.
I thought Neil was the politically correct one. Wow.
No, because for the last few weeks we've been talking about how Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are title contenders and can make it work. And we were talking and giving so much praise on the offense and how the only person that needs to get it right is Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, like you say, you know what? I can just spray just like Corona. I can spread my bad play to everybody, and let me all special teams. I'm not part of the special teams. The only team that played again last night because they get 3 points. Other than that, nobody else didn't play. It was horrible. It was embarrassing, and I think that if you right now you gotta forget about the New Orleans Saints. You can't beat them. Get them off your mind, right? A one-trick pony in the New Orleans Saints, where Drew Brees is looking human, right? And all you got to do is shut down one player and see what happens on defense. You can't get that done. So what we doing? What we doing, Tampa Bay? What we doing that we can come out and get beat? What was 36, 38, or how much ever you get? 3.
38-3.
You only got 3. It don't matter. You got 3. With a Tom Brady led team. This is why I'm so upset, is because I personally have said I have always tried to be on the butt side on this show. For the last few weeks, I saying, man, Tom just got to get it right. The offense look good, and fellas gonna be fine. You know what I mean? Everything gonna be good. You know, the running back, he looks good. You know, he has targets. Tom Brady just needs to learn and get acclimated. Well, you know what, Brady? This is we get into week 9 now, right? And you can't beat the Saints. I got bad news for you. The Saints in it. The Saints in it. And if you can't beat the Saints, furthermore, collectively, what? In the last 2 meetings, they have what? 27 points, while the Saints have, just some quick math here. Wait, it's no, it's 34.
31 over there.
34. Yeah, so that's 77 points. That must be about 31. That's a basketball score. That
and don't forget
a Premier League basketball.
No, that's a bad basketball score.
And don't forget, Neil, in those 2 matchups now, Tom Brady has 5 combined interceptions. 5 in those 2 matchups.
Interceptions are only 2 touchdowns. It is the first time that he's ever lost a season series to any team in the NFL. Right? He hasn't seen the red zone.
That stat with a grain of salt, though, because a lot of people forget that he played in a very, very bad AFC East for so long. Like, yeah, Buffalo looks good now because they have Josh Allen, but I can't name you 5 Buffalo quarterbacks in that span that Tom Brady was playing the AFC East. Miami has been terrible forever. Only know that Brian Flores is there as a coach, a black coach, all the same. And, well, the Adam Gase New York Jets. I will say no more. So I take that stat of Tom Brady never being swept in a season series against a division opponent with a grain of salt, because he spent 20 years in a very, very bad AFC East. The AFC East was only good for a period of time when Rex Ryan was coaching those New York Jets to back-to-back AFC title game appearances. Other than that, like my own Buffalo, and the only competition that Tom ever had in that span, other than the Rex Ryan Jets, was when he would go and, they would have that bad game in Miami every single year. But other than that, the AFC is nonsense. So I take out that stat and that's where the way. But go on.
Well, hold on. But listen, my last thing that I got to talk about, right? Because, I was doing research on this, right? And I was trying to dig into the numbers to what went wrong, right? And normally, when you see a box score like 38 to 3, you say, well, shoot.
Yeah.
You say, but the defense didn't play, or the offense was stymied, or, whatever. How do you rush the ball 5 times? In a whole football game?
4, really, if you take away Blaine Gabbert's, whatever that was at the end of the game, you really rushed the ball for 4 times. And I'm like, especially what troubled me was the second series. They are pinned, like Tom Brady is literally in his own end zone. And as you would know, you want to give yourself some room to operate. You'd figure, you have Ronald Jones, you have Leonard Fournette.
Yep.
You would have a couple rushes to get out of your end zone. No, they were throwing. I think in that series they went a quick 3 and out with 3 straight passes, and I'm like, what are y'all? Did you not learn from your first matchup, and did you not learn from the other weeks when you were running the football?
Who's the owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I blame him too. I blame everybody for last night's loss. Everybody.
That would be Marsha's people that own the Manchester United.
The Glazers.
The Glazer family indeed owns the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All I saying, Marsha, it was a horrible, horrible loss. When I saw the funny thing is when I saw this question come in the pre-production, I was like, who's to blame? The better question is who not to blame for this loss in the Tampa Bay organization. That's the truth.
Well, we focused a bit on Tampa Bay, so let's turn the attention now on the Saints. They're currently leading the NFC South with a 6-2 record. It's time for them to enter the proverbial Super Bowl chat, Should the Saints now be seen as Super Bowl contenders? Neil, I'm going to start with you this time.
Well, yes, I do think that you can consider them Super Bowl contenders. I mean, they do have a pretty decent offense. They have a pretty decent defense. They've only suffered a handful of losses. I mean, they were 1-3 to start. Since then, they're 5-0. They've lost against my Raiders and I think Justice Packers, I believe.
That's right.
So I mean, right. So I mean, everything considered, they're hitting all their cylinders. Even though Drew Brees does not look um, he does not look like his normal self. Obviously, he's a few years removed from his prime. He's entering the decline. Well, he is in the decline. So, I mean, I still think that they're considered. They should be considered a Super Bowl contender. I think their challenge is going to be for me, as I was mentioning earlier when we were talking about the Bucks, is that their offense seems to primarily focus on Alvin Kamara, and that's a big problem for me when you have your running back uh, uh, as your primary receiver. So they have as I mentioned before, they have Emmanuel Sanders, they have Traquan Smith. What was this tight end? The tight end was
Jared
it Jared Cook?
Jared
Right.
Cook.
Right, they have Jared Cook. They have the weapons, but for me, for some reason, I feel kind of skittish. We're relying heavily on one person because barring injuries, barring anything negative happen, it is a defense that could it's an offense that could be easily stopped. Once you make sure because basically you're telling me that short yardage is your go-to, right? Anything 10 yards and under, while you're focusing on Alvin Kamara or you're focusing on the run, anything under 10 yards is yours, essentially. So now, if I force you, and as Justin was mentioned while we were talking about Tampa Bay, where's Drew arm strength, especially at his advanced age? I am forcing him to make those not deep throws, but anything over 10 yards. I want medium gain. Like, show me that you can pass on a slant route or on a curl in. Show me that you could do these things, right? Show me that your wide receivers and you are on the same level that you can, on the same wavelength that you could do these things. That's a concern for me. And also, I think the second concern for me is that as good as their defense has been, I worry about them having to face a prolific offense. Now, granted, their schedule, the only real teams that they would have faced, that they would have beaten, is Tampa Bay and the Packers. I worry about, especially in their division. I'm sorry, not in their division, their conference. I'm worried about the other high level offenses that they're going to face, right? Because they're in the NFC, so we speak about the NFC every week, whether good or bad. But really and truly, NFC is the stronger conference. You have the NFC West. Outside of the NFC East, really and truly, the Saints would have a problem, right? You got any three teams coming out of the NFC West, the NFC North. So, like, to me, I worry about them facing the Seahawks, for example. I worry about them facing the St. Kansas City Chiefs, right? Like, can they defend such prolific offenses and such mobile quarterbacks and such um, determined run game, right? So, because you're going to get people are going to adjust to you, and as I mentioned before, you got one trick pony and Alvin Kamara. But then, no, can you defend anybody? And I don't know. I think that we can say that they will make some noise in the NFC. I can even very well say that they could get the second round. I will not say that they will get to the championship game. And if you can't get to the championship game, you can't get the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't necessarily say, I know I started off by saying they're contenders, they're going all over the world, sorry, but I would say they have the pieces to be a contender. And as we like to say, that the football players on any given Sunday, but the truth remains, they got to show me a bit more. They got to show me that they can compete and contend with the other big dogs in the NFC.
All right, Neil, I will kind of convince me a bit. The whole thing is once you get into playoffs,
Wait. Stop. He convinced you, meaning I need a little bit. You can't just drop that nugget there and leave it alone.
Interrupt.
So
Why did you interrupt him, Marsh? I wanted to hang himself.
No. I needed clarity. Yes, go ahead.
I was about to start and say I would put the Saints as a Super Bowl contender.
Okay.
But I guess that's only if they have to play the Bucks every week. Like, that's clearly if they had to play Tampa Bay every Sunday, yeah, they probably would be a Super Bowl contender. Um, yeah, I too would be a bit concerned if they had to play the Seattles, the Arizonas of the world, and then you saw what happened when they had to play my Green Bay Packers, even at home. You saw Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams light them up. Aaron Jones had a huge game in that thing. I think also Alan Lazard, that was the last game he played before he went down with the abdominal strain. So yeah, I'd be concerned if they were to play the Packers, if they were to play the Seahawks and the Cardinals. But as we know in football, any given Sunday, and once you get in the playoffs, any number can play from there. But what you must remember, Neil, well, the stats would say that they are a one-trick pony with running back Alvin Kamara, who is as high as third in the league in receptions, and him basically accounted for most of their offense, if not all. They were a bit banged up. Michael Thomas only just came back from injury, and I think he missed all but the opener against those same Buccaneers. I guess he was just waiting for them again. Emmanuel Sanders has been in and out. I have lamented over and over their inability to use tight end Jared Cook properly. I thought they would utilize Deontay Harris more. That's the speedy kick returner that they have. Traquan Smith, their other speedster, I thought they would use him some more. But last night showed me why they could be considered Super Bowl contenders, because you saw, like, I think they had 12 different players getting receptions last night, and 9 of which had more than one catch. If I didn't know any better, I would say Taysom Hill, their backup quarterback, their gadget player, is the best player in football. Buccaneers had no answer for him, whether as a wildcat quarterback. You saw him hit Jared Cook for a big gain over the middle lane during the early stages of the game. He's running back. I think he led the team in rushes with seven carries for 55 yards. When he was in tight on the formation as a tight end, couldn't stop him then. They can stop him when he was split up wide as a right receiver. And it wasn't just him. Jared Cook had 2 big receptions, though he fumbled one fighting for yardage to go in the end zone. Alvin Kamara, both as a running back, as a wide receiver. Michael Thomas coming back for injury. I think he had 5 catches for 55 yards. Traquan Smith with that touchdown. In back, Emmanuel Sanders with a touchdown. And 2 others, I think another back-end tight end, their backup tight ends, had touchdowns in this game. And I mean, I don't know whether that is playing Tampa Bay, but they looked so varied last night. And their defense has been coming on. They too had some injuries. So you saw Cam Jordan collapse in the pocket for Tom Brady, and that caused him problems when, again, they were focusing too much on long developing routes down the field. And then along the back end, we know Malcolm Jenkins, that veteran safety, is great. Janoris Jenkins as a cornerback, Marshawn Lattimore. I think that this team, as Neil said, is balanced enough on both sides of the football. Like people like to say, they play complementary football. And I think the depth, there's no real lack of talent on either side of the football. And they are a very good kick returning team, but with Deontay Harris, either punts and kickoffs. I think this team is a legit threat. Are they better than the Green Bay Packers? I can't say that, obviously, because they're my Green Bay Packers, and we did beat them in New Orleans. I'd say they're better than Seattle because they can't defend, unlike Seattle, who we saw got torched by the Bills that we mentioned in the show. And because of the experience with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, I think that they're better than the Arizona Cardinals. So I'd say, likely, I'd put them up there, the Packers, as the class of the NFC right now. And if you're the class of one conference, then you have to be a legit Super Bowl contender.
We'll be keeping an eye on these Saints to see how things shape up. But as you mentioned, I'd like to touch on both Buffalo and the Raiders. Now, starting with Buffalo, they're currently at the top of the AFC East, 7-2 record. And so, mentioned they defeated the Seahawks 44-34, a big win for them over Russell Wilson and company. Are we sleeping on the Bills?
I am not. I am very, very, very wide awake. I know national media went to sleep on them after they had a 2-game losing streak. But the problem is everyone kept forgetting those 2 losses weren't bad losses. They lost to the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs and the team that was also in that AFC title game, Tennessee Titans. If you're going to lose 2 games, then well, those are the 2 games to lose. And it is not, as I said, we just talked. Buffalo just beat a very, very good Seattle team. And yeah, it might sound like a 2-score game, but the game was not as close as the margin suggests. Like Buffalo ran roughshod all over Seattle. It was not close at any point. Seattle got a couple of late touchdowns to make the game, sound respectable. But this is a very, very, very good football team. They're a top 5 passing attack. I think they are the best red zone scoring team in the NFL right now. Their quarterback was in the MVP conversation until those 2 losses, and I think Josh Allen should still be in this quarterback in that MVP conversation. And then I think he's now set a record for the longest amount of games in succession with a passing and rushing touchdown as a quarterback. This team is for real. The only causes for concern, for lack of a better term for me, is on the defensive end. We saw Seattle put up 34, and they tend to get in a lot of shootouts. And it's quite weird when you look at their defensive makeup. Last season, they were like a top 3 defensive unit, and they have like Tre'Davious White, I think so, a tremendous cornerback. And then you look at a Jack, well, what do you call a Swiss knife player like Micah Hyde, who can line up anywhere, whether it be a safety, inside corner, inside linebacker if need be for if you're playing a nickel. This team is really built well. The defense is supposed to be a lot better than the numbers are suggesting. You brought over the kid from Minnesota to give Josh Allen a great number 1 target. So like, I like this team. I'm not telling you it is on the class of the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe not even the Baltimore Ravens. But as we just mentioned, you just have to win and get in. So that team, I think, no, we spoke about it last week. They're probably going to run away with the AFC East at some point if Miami does indeed start losing. And we know New England is out of it. They're going to win. They're going to get a high seed, probably 3rd seed at the very lowest. They're going to get in the playoffs. And once you get in, they don't turn over the football, which is great for this type of playoff football when the weather gets cold and you want to protect the football. My only concern, as I said, is they give up a ton of yardage, and they're not exactly a great running team, although you would be surprised considering that their quarterback is a dual threat one, and they find ways to punch in the ball in the red zone via rushing, but they don't really accumulate a lot of yards on the ground. But I'm not sleeping on this team. I am wide awake on Buffalo Bills, and they will get in the playoffs, and I will not be surprised if they win a playoff game.
Neil, what about you? Do you share Justin's sentiments on the Bills?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really add anything to that other than they're playing solid enough. The losses that they had were the losses that you can't really, at the time, the Titans were, they were playing phenomenal football. Chiefs being who they are. So I am not necessarily, I can't disagree with Justin there. I mean, their schedule will let them to, it's fine, Justin, it can happen, rarely. But when you look at Bills, yes, they were a bit better on defense, and that would be my concern as well. Because a lot of these games they did go into a shootout, as Justin said. Like, I just feel like I'm repeating Justin here. Like, regarding the Buffalo Bills, excuse me, regarding the Buffalo Bills, man, I think they're boats. I think that they can make the playoffs. I think they can be very disruptive once they get in the playoffs. Are they going to get out of their conference? Are they going to go to the Super Bowl? No, but I think that people shouldn't have been sleeping about that on them. I haven't been sleeping on them before. I think they were playing phenomenal, and I I don't even know what to add. I just kind of fill in time right now.
Well, Neil, coming back to you again. Your Raiders now. They're currently second in that AFC West division with a 5-3 record. Are people sleeping on the Raiders?
Yeah.
And this is no bias here.
Well, people are always sleeping on the Raiders, right? Or Raiders, this is just what they do. I mean, that goes because we've not been good for so long. And even the rare few times that we were good, we did not capitalize or we didn't go any further than the expectations were for that season. So, I mean, people will sleep on the Raiders. It's just part of football lore and culture. But specifically this season, I think they did because we were now fully moving in and transitioning to a new city in Las Vegas. People were kind of worried about how our offense would gel. You have David Carr, obviously, but you have Josh Jacobs. You have, I think, Darren Waller. So you have these players, wide receiver. You have these players, and it's just to see if the chemistry can go and if they can do. But they've been playing great football. I mean, to me, I think that they're good. I mean, their path to the playoffs is going to be a very hard one. I mean, their schedule is going to be pretty nice and everything, but they're going to unfortunately have to play a wild card simply because they're in the NFC. So
the AFC West.
Yeah, their schedule. Sorry, the what is that? What did I say?
You said NFC. They're in the AFC West, which obviously belongs to
Right,
defending Super Bowl champs.
Sorry. Right, the NFC on my brain. Sorry. Yeah, but they're gonna have challenges getting into the playoffs. Yes, their schedule looks pretty easy, but they're not gonna win any divisions. Well, as of now, it all depends on what happens. Their schedule is easy enough that they can make a run for it. But you got teams like the Ravens, you got the Colts, you got the Browns, you got those kinds of teams that we would have to actually get past in order to get into the playoffs during the wild card. I mean, obviously, I would like to see Browns playing good football. I would like to see the Colts. I do not want to see the Ravens. But our offense is decent. Our defense is decent. We are, I would say, really the Bills, but just not as talented on the offensive side of the ball, and we can make things happen. We have a winning record in our building, so I mean, it's one of those things where people have slept on the Raiders. They've always slept on the Raiders. But this season, I have something to be kind of proud of, that we will have a winning record, knock on wood. And that, all things going in our favor, we can make the playoffs and in the first round. And that's it. Thanks for coming.
I too have been wide awake on these Raiders, and that was from the very moment, because you have to again the games that they played, and from the moment that they defeated the Saints, like you have to be wide awake. Hold on, let's make sure. Did their deed. Yeah.
Yeah, they beat the Saints. They beat the Saints on
and they beat the Saints, and not only that, they've seen their only loss of the season. So like you have to be wide awake for this. Granted that they also have a bad loss against the Patriots, which I mean, when you look at it, it really does look bad right now. But again, the only other losses they have.
Again, sorry, cross Justin, but at the time, man, the Patriots were a little better than what they are now. I mean, I think that to being 2-1 going into week 4, having beaten the Saints, having beaten the New England Patriots at that time, to me, you in a good standing, man, and you lost to Buffalo. I mean, right?
I don't mind. So it was the New England Patriots loss that's concerning for me, and they've beaten their losses have come to the Buccaneers and Buffalo. Respectable losses. I have no problem with those. Again, it was the Patriots loss, but as you correctly said, that was with a healthy Cam Newton and a New England Patriots side that was within a yard of also beating the Seattle Seahawks. This Raiders team is a very good one in terms of how they're built. They're a top 5 rushing attack with Josh Jacobs. I think he's 3rd in rushing yards in the league. Again, they don't turn over the ball. Quarterback Derek Carr, he has the knock on him that he doesn't push the ball downfield, but 16 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions on the year. I'll live with that. Darren Waller, as Neil correctly mentioned, he may arguably be the third best tight end in the league right now, behind the injured George Kittle and aforementioned Travis Kelce from Kansas City. This is a well-built football team. I will be shocked if they win a playoff game December. It would be, but I fully expect them to make it. They're not the class of the NFC West. What's that, Neil? I didn't hear you.
No, I would say I would be surprised too. And I'm a Raider fan.
Yeah, I'd be surprised because, like I said, the top of the AFC, you're not going to beat Kansas City. You're not going to beat Baltimore. You're not going to beat Pittsburgh, probably. But again, to be fair, this team has already beaten Kansas City and, has a win against the Saints. Like, this is a good football team. When you don't turn over the football, you can run the football and you don't waste red zone opportunities. That is the best way to score. Sorry, that is the best way to win football games. Your tight end has been amazing. I think he's 12th in the league in receptions, and that's including wide receivers and tight ends and running backs. Like this John Gruden coach team has been a solid, if not spectacular one. I expect them to fully get in the playoffs, but as Neil mentioned, I don't think there is enough talent. I don't think they take away the ball enough to cause any real threat among the true Super Bowl contenders. I don't really see them giving the Ravens and the Steelers a lot of issues. But they will make it because, as Neil mentioned, the top of the AFC is really good. The rest of the AFC, not so very much. When you get past, I would say when you get past the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Steelers, maybe you have the Colts because the Colts are a very good defensive team. The Bills may make some noise, as I said, and win a playoff game, but it's not much really after that. So, yeah, I have not been sleeping on those Raiders, especially considering that Saints victory came very early, and they're the only team to knock off the champs.
Well, let us know what you think. Are people sleeping on the Raiders and Buffalo? Let us know in the comments. Either you think the Saints are actually Super Bowl contenders right now. Guys, I want to switch sports now, turning the attention to the NBA. Now, from all reports, things are shaping up for this December 22nd restart. Lots of considerations. You need to get those money-making Christmas games in. A shortened season, possibly 72 games, likely to conclude before the Olympic Games. So that's another hurdle that you get over. But there are still some, niggling things that need to be worked out, etc. Justin, starting with you. Do you feel, or how do you feel about a December 22nd restart?
I'm torn. I don't like it because the catchphrase in all sports, as you know, Marsha and Neil, has been player safety, player safety, player safety. And you tell me you're so concerned about players. And by my limited math, I think it'll be a 71-day break between when you ended the season and when you're due to start. First, at least it'll be 71 days for the two finalists, the Lakers and the Heat. How are you asking these players after a 71-day break? And it's going to be not that much longer for the other losing conference finalists, the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets. That's less than 100 days break. Are you asking these guys, especially somebody like LeBron James, who's entering his 18th season, are you asking these guys to have this short and quick turnaround? And you know the answer to that, Marsha? $500 million to $1 billion in reasoning why you have that quick turnaround. And that's why I can't hate on them. It is, I think they made an estimation that anywhere between $500 million and $1 billion in revenue is what they will get if they can start right before Christmas, have a 72 games, have a 72 game season, and in mid-July, right in time for right before the start of the Tokyo Olympics. And you don't want to be competing, as you know, having TV time clashing with the Olympics, you're going to lose out there, just like the
And
NBA
not
found out.
only clashing in terms of television time, but also players, because particularly the European players, if you're deep into the playoffs around that time, there will be a decision that has to be made, whether representing your national team versus your league franchise.
Right. So you don't want that situation, like TV money. You can't afford to lose anymore. You already don't have people, or you may not have people in the stands. You
That's yeah.
lost you lost a ton of revenue last season, and you lost even more revenue when your playoffs and finals were competing with King NFL. So as much as I am so concerned about player safety and the rest and rehab of the players such as LeBron James, and not because he's a superstar, but because of his age, the reality is like, who wants to lose money? Who wants to lose $5 billion? I don't even know what 500 million or $1 billion looks like. So it was the only choice. I remember late in the summer when it was being tossed out, or early in the fall when they were thinking maybe they will have a February start, and it was like, no way that's ever happening. They're not going to miss out on the Christmas money, those Christmas games, providing them
And
a
to
great
just to
viewership.
put those Christmas games into context, of the 10 most watched games last year, 3 of them fell on Christmas Day. So, and this includes finals, etc. 3 of those
And
top 10 throughout the season fell on Christmas Day.
no surprise there. America likes to tie their sports to holidays. So Christmas is basketball, Thanksgiving coming up is football, Memorial Day is baseball. That's what they do. So the NBA could ill afford to lose more revenue with TV dollars and then try to compete. The Olympics is just a dollars and cents move.
Neil, what about you? How are you feeling about a potential December 22nd restart?
Yeah, I mean, we agreeing again, Justin, because I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily say my concern, sorry, as Justin said, would be the turnaround time, right? You have it's not only the teams that were in the finals and the conference finals, but you had a lot of teams just making it out to the bubble and playing basketball, and then normally players would stop playing they would stop playing in April and then come back in October. That's what, 6 months, a 6 month, almost 5.5 month layoff. But you consider that some players would have stopped playing probably 2 months
March.
ago,
Well,
and then you're
and what about the flip
no, no,
side?
no.
Those who didn't make it into the bubble.
Oh my gosh. Like what? Everything stopped in March, right?
March, yes.
So teams like the Bulls and the
Right.
Knicks
So
haven't played since March.
right. So you so it's two concerns for me. One, you have teams that have not played since March, and then you've had teams that did play in the bubble but didn't make the playoffs, or teams that would have gotten to the first and second round but didn't get any further. So like for example, the Houston Rockets, right? The last time they would have played basketball a month. I'm sorry, 2 months ago. I know you're asking them that essentially 3 months would be the turnaround time for them to get back into basketball shape and to play at a high level for 72 games, right? Um, my other concern is, as Justin was mentioning, the player safety. Now, how is it going to work? I mean, we had a situation where there was a lockdown, we had a pandemic, everybody kind of stayed there for a little over 90 days, almost 100 days. Everything was nice. But now, what are you going to do now? Especially if you're engaging all 30 teams, you're going to have trouble. People were asking what's going to happen when it comes to Toronto, for example. What's going to happen when you have other teams that are far out west traveling to east road trip games and that kind of thing. What's going to happen? What are you going to do? Are you going to designate certain arenas for certain teams, or so if you understand? So if you understand, what I'm saying, you kind of create micro bubbles in certain areas of the country, like probably 6 or 7, and then you just fly there. The teams play, and then they go back to their business. Now, it begs to ask, what about the other teams and their arenas and their staff and everything like that? Do you have a rotation system? So it's just interesting to see how they're going to come about doing that, making sure players are safe, especially you're dealing with much more players and everything like that. As I said, you can't deny the money. I mean, it was no surprise to me that when the NBA said that they're starting about December 22nd, I was like, of course, because that Christmas money is what you want. You want that money for sure, especially I know some of our fans out there may not know this, but you got new consoles coming out this year. You got the Xbox, you got the PlayStation. That's money people want tied their products to the NBA, and that's Christmas. So Christmas 22nd is just in time for the last minute shoppers. I can see a lot of PlayStation ads, a lot of 2K ads, a lot of car ads, a lot of all types of ads, right? Commercials tying into the NBA. And then it's not only about the revenue, but going forward now into 2021, the Olympics, you don't want a situation where you have to go through and play through the summer. While I really thoroughly enjoyed watching basketball during summer and watching basketball all evening, all afternoon, all evening, you don't go up against the Olympics because you ain't winning that, not even once. So I understand the dollars and cents of it. I understand from a business standpoint the rush to get it back by December 22nd. But I think those concerns that I mentioned are like player safety. Well, it all comes down to player safety, right? I mean, whether the players have not played since March or if they've played, in the first, second round or what have you, the turnaround time to me is either too long or too short for the normal for players. So it comes down to how do you protect the players from injury? How do you protect the players from the coronavirus? And how do you protect the basketball arenas and the owners and the not the owners, sorry, the staff of these arenas? How do you protect them if you're not going to be playing in all of the arenas all around the country? You're going to restrict in travel and you're only going to one location and or a few locations around the country. So those are my concerns. I can't even say I feel a ways about it. It just I knew it was going to happen. So.
Well, it will be interesting to see how all of these different areas will be navigated as it relates to the Raptors. Definitely, they won't be playing in Canada. The question is now where in the U.S. they will be playing. From the preliminary reports, it's looking Newark, the Presidential Center, and T-Mobile Center in Kansas City are the top two front runners in terms of their relocation.
I'd figure Newark because then, like Neil was mentioning, like a mini bubble situation. So when you have those games against your opponents like Knicks and the Nets, you can make sure that they travel the short.
Northeast.
Yeah, so basically you can see a bit a situation and Boston. So you make sure that the travel is very, very tight. So I figure like Newark, New Jersey, yeah, that's where that you're basically gonna. I don't see it making sense taking them to Missouri. If you have an NBA ready facility short there in Newark, make travel tight, especially in these COVID-19 situations where you don't want spreading a lot of travel. Yeah, that makes the most sense.
And bear in mind that playing logistics might not be the only consideration, though. You have to think about sponsors, who sponsors have pre-existing arrangements with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, because there was talk about going to Seattle, but again, that doesn't make. And I mean, I wish that Seattle would get back in the NBA franchise. I mean, it's only right. I mean, we sit down and saw the Supersonics, and they had such great players, namely Sean Kemp and Gary Payton. But again, travel-wise, it doesn't make sense. I mean, they have an NBA-ready arena there, but it just wouldn't make sense if, especially Toronto as the Eastern Conference team in the Atlantic Division, you're going to be playing most of your games. If Adam Silver's smart about it, you're going to be playing most of your games within your actual division. So the Knicks, the Nets, the Boston Celtics, you want them in vicinity, so the travel is not a lot. But again, you correctly said you can't look past the financial situation over financial partners, sponsors, etc.
And just for further context, the Blue Jays, they actually played their MLB games out of Buffalo. So we'll see what happens.
Marsha,
yes.
I just want to add a quick point. Sorry, Marsha. I just want to add a quick point. You know what? While Justin was talking and you were talking about about locations and micro bubbles and mini bubbles or whatever, right? You know, I would find interesting how they schedule these games. So, normally how they would schedule games would be that, let's say, so for example, West Coast games, you play, if you're from the West Coast, you play all your West Coast games, all your opponents, you'll see them about 3-4 times a year. And then if you are playing East Coast opponents, you see them twice a year, right? A home and away. Now, the question would be, do you have your mini bubble? And let's say LA goes out to the Knicks, for example, would you have the Knicks play them, just the Lakers play them twice and be done with it, or would you have them crossing country or anything like that? Or even if you have like the Golden State Warriors and the Lakers, do they fly to each arena, just play those 4 games, or play a series? If you understand, I'm saying like baseball. So baseball will play like a weekend series, best of 3 or something like that, and then just be done with it and move on. But I mean, obviously baseball has a lot more games. But I'm just wondering, and it would be interesting how the schedule would be formulated for those situations where you have biosecure environments around the country.
I think, Neil, my guess, I don't know obviously, would be that the likelihood is you are not going to have a home and away, in that, say you're in the Eastern Conference and I'm in the West, we're only going to play each other once instead of twice. So the likelihood is when I go east, I'm going to play. I think road trips are going to be extremely long now. That would be my solution, in that, all right, I have an East Coast swing. Let me take care of these Atlantic Division opponents now. So if I'm the Lakers, I'm going to take care of my road swing against the Knicks, the Nets, the Boston Celtics, and depending on where I put the Toronto Raptors before I come home. So I think you're going to see very, very long road trips going forward. So like when, as I said, the Lakers go somewhere, they're going to go and take care of their Atlantic Division opponents in one swing. Or then if you go to, the Central Division, then you're going to take care of that in one swing. So you play Cleveland, you play Detroit, you play Milwaukee in one swing in 1 week and a half, and then get that out of the way and come back. And it'll be a situation where I play at you, but you're likely may not play at me, and get that out of the way.
Well, it will definitely be interesting to see how all of this unfolds, and the build up to that potential December 22nd start. I almost said December 2020 start. That December 22nd start. We'll be having the NBA draft coming up on November 18th. Justin, starting with you, who's your number one pick? Who do you have to go at number one?
Today, and we had our pre-production meeting. I had no clue. I was wrestling between LaMelo Ball, James Weissman, and the kid from Georgia, Anthony Edwards. And I then, you have to look at situation, you have to look at fit, you have to look at player skills, and who's going to want what. Initially, if you'd asked me last week, I'd probably say LaMelo Ball, because Minnesota has that number one overall pick. They do have a talented guard, young one in D'Angelo Russell, but he's not a point guard per se. I mean, kind of combo, but he looks for his own shot more so than a guy that you start the offense through. So I said that there was a natural slot for LaMelo to fit right alongside. And then broke the news of that, and I mean, these are multiple reports, that LaMelo has been doing atrocious on his team interviews. Like, I mean, as terrible as they come, like everyone is concerned about his lack of maturity, the answers, and if, coming with a number one pick comes almost like a face of a franchise type sort of situation. And Minnesota, I mean, may not need that because you already have Karl Anthony Towns there. But I would be concerned if maturity right now is your biggest question mark, and you don't want this guy to be representing you. In Minnesota, of all places that need a redo, for lack of a better term, an overhaul, a culture change, I'd be worried about bringing LaMelo Ball in there. So
you're saying that he's likely to have that proverbial slip down the table?
I think this draft is particularly weak, so I don't think he's going to fall too far. I don't think he's going to follow the top 5. Probably go number 3. So it is almost like by default, I think Anthony Edwards is going to be that guy that goes number 1, the kid from Georgia. There are question marks over his scoring ability. Like, he's not polished as a scorer. 6'5" shooting guard, but doesn't have that polished jump shot or polished offense at all. But he seems to be the most NBA-ready player of all of them. Great defender already, great wingspan, athleticism, a very stout player, strong. So my guess, and I mean, we've already heard rumors that Minnesota is trying to trade out. So that already shows you the lack of quality in this draft. And they probably just don't want LaMelo Ball.
Yeah.
So my guess is if they don't trade, then I'd say Anthony Edwards at number 1. The trade will come right after them because I cannot see a situation where Golden State at 2 keeps that pick still looking for titles. As I told Neil before, rookie does not fit the timeline of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. There's already rumors out there they're trying to peddle that number 2 pick to get LaMarcus Aldridge from the San Antonio Spurs. So I think that's where the trade is going to come. But to answer your question, Marsha, I would say Anthony Edwards at 1 to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
And you, Neil, who's your pick?
Yeah. Excuse me. I can't disagree. Anthony Edwards from Georgia. I mean, he's 6'5", 225. And when you look at who's the number 1 team in the draft, which is the Minnesota Timberwolves, it kind of fits what they would want right now. They don't need a forward or center. They don't need a point guard, and if anything, Anthony Edwards can relieve D'Angelo Russell whenever. But they need a wing player that is that can give them buckets, right? No, to me, I see Anthony Edwards, as like kind of like a what's his name, Donovan Mitchell, but like a poor man's Donovan Mitchell when he came in, because he is 6'5", he is 225, he is strong, he is athletic, he can rebound the ball, push the ball, etc. Justin did mention, and I do agree that he needs to work on his scoring touch. He needs to work on his mid range, his shooting. He shoots 29% from 3. That's a problem for a wing player. His free throw percentage is 77%. That is a problem for a scoring wing player. So I think he has to work on some things. How does he look on defense against elite? Because you remember now, if you go into Minnesota, who he can be facing some elite guards, especially you have Steph and Klay coming back. You what's the boy's name? Damian Lillard. You have a lot of great, the same Donovan Mitchell, the same Jamal Murray. Can he lock those guys up when the night come? Especially seeing he's going to be seeing them for the majority of the time. So, anyhow, I get it all. The real question was, if I see him, where do I see him? I see him as number 1. I do agree that LaMelo Ball is going to slip, or he's going to be traded for the number 2 spot. It's not surprising to me. I was surprised to hear Justin say it was surprising to him that LaMelo Ball was not doing well with his interviews. I mean, I guess because I follow him more so on the social media, and I would have watched a bit of the Ball in the Family just to see because really and truly those reality TV shows and those or his Instagram and stuff like that, his social media, I would have paid attention to, because I'm trying to see the kind of mentality of this kid, right? I've known about the brothers and the Ball family for the last probably 4 or 5 years, and I wanted to see, how they would have matured. We know how Lonzo turned out, we know how Jello turned out. I was kind of just checking his social media and any clips or anything like that off the court to see what kind of person. Yes, in the last 2 years he would have played overseas against grown men, etc. I wanted to see where his maturity level would have been. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. He's an immature person. He is a spoiled person. He can play the game of basketball. I think he's going to be traded by Golden State. But yeah, there's nobody else really I can see going to number 1. It is a very weak draft.
But Neil, sorry to cross you, but I want to engage you on that LaMelo Ball. Granted, that I don't watch Ball in the Family, so I wouldn't have seen or insight into him.
Don't let him make it say that. I watch it either. I watch 1 or 2 episodes.
No, but I'm not going to knock you if you do. But my issue is that I thought, even if he is in actual fact immature person, and you've heard those reports coming out of Australia and Lithuania, my thing is, I figured for interviews, considering your older brother Lonzo went through the process, would have coached you up to make sure that, to get you right. So I didn't foresee a situation where you'd be that bad at interviews. Like, sure, you want your natural side to come through, but I just didn't figure that.
There's only so much you can coach, huh?
And not only that too, but I think you've given those ball boys a bit. Yeah, I think not only that too, Justin, but I think those ball boys, right? They're brothers, and yes, they would have a level of camaraderie. I don't know if they're necessarily the type of brothers that would go to one another and say, "Yo, big bro, I got a problem with such and such. Can you give me life advice on how to deal with this or that next?" Because don't get tired, you know, Alonso, even though he's in the NBA, he's been in the NBA for a while and everything like that, he's in well into his 20s, he's also pretty immature as well. So I actually can see a situation where LaMelo would be hesitant to talk to Alonso about the interview process. And I could even see if he did approach him for the interview process, Lonzo trying to make a joke of it and kind of being belittled or something, because that's what that family is about. It's all about male machismo and you know, you're ridiculed when you ask for help in the slightest way, and it's all about competitiveness and being better and that and stuff like that. And LaMelo has been fed for the last how many ever years that he was going to be a number one pick. He's the best out of all the Ball brothers. He is going to be the one that's going to take the Ball brand all over the globe and make them a whole lot of money and all sorts of stuff. Now, when you got all of that, it's just not surprising to me in any way. I didn't expect him to go to Lonzo and say, Lonzo, help me out. I didn't expect him to get advice from his dad, his grandfather maybe, but it just is not surprising to me.
Well, guys, we're going to wait until November 18th to see how the draft goes down. But that's it for us here tonight on This Just In. Don't forget to like this video. Of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video, and share, drop us a comment, etc. You can find us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're also on Instagram. That's it for us here. I'm Marsha Boyce.
I am Justin Marvel.
And you already know I'm the Neil Hoy.
Saying good night.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the king, no matter you're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.